In the past, I've spoken about unreliable automatic gearboxes. They can be absolutely ruinous if you wind up buying one of those. They're often very complex, they require specialist knowledge to repair, which of course doesn't come cheap. And from that video, many of you asked, okay, I know what to avoid now, but what should I actually go out and buy? Well, in this video, I've collated some of the best, with budgets ranging from £3,000 all the way up to about £15,000. Let's get started, shall we? Now, I've done my best in this video to cover all the bases, so hopefully there's something for everyone here. I'm going to start at the tiny city cars and work my way up to the larger cars and SUVs. So first up, on tiny city cars is the Hyundai i10 up until model year 2020. Now you're going to find examples of these from around about £3,000 right up to about £10,000 for late clean examples. Gearbox wise, they use a 4-speed torque converter. A little bit old school, isn't it? But like the rest of the car, it's fairly basic, it does the job, and it's very reliable. Now, a good thing about these cars as well, they use a timing chain in the engine, so there's no belt interval to be concerned about, which is great because that cuts down on maintenance cost. And let me just add, the reason that it's up to model year 2020 and not beyond is because that's the point where Hyundai switched over to the automated manual gearbox. They got rid of that torque converter and they put in an automated manual. It was a good bit more complex, it wasn't as smooth, it wasn't as nice to drive, and because of the complexity, it wasn't quite as reliable as the old torque converter, so stick to going up to 2020. You can also include the Kia Picanto and everything I'm saying here as well, because under the skin and under the badge, it is essentially the same car as the i10. Next up, let's talk small cars, not necessarily tiny city cars, but small cars. Now, one definitely worthy of your consideration here is the Honda Jazz from 2011 onwards. Now, Jazzies, they've got a little bit of a convoluted history when it comes to their automatic gearboxes. Let me try and give you a quick breakdown here. So the early ones, between 2002 and 2008, they used an early CVT gearbox. Now these were okay. They could have the occasional judder when you were pulling away, coming off of the starter clutch. I actually made a little video documenting how to repair this. It wasn't a major problem, it didn't affect every single car, and it was more of an annoyance than anything else. So in 2009, Honda decided to move away from it, and they went to the I-Shift gearbox. And you guessed it, it was another automated manual, very similar to the i10 and the Picanto. Now that automated manual, it wasn't very well received by Honda customers either, so it was very short-lived. By 2011, Honda had moved back to a revised version of that original CVT, and that's the one to have. I know of at least 2 CVT Jazzies north of 140,000 miles, still going strong, and that was the last time that I seen them. They're probably quite a bit further on than that now. Now that gearbox, it was used right up until 2020, and you're going to want to budget between £4,000 and £5,000 for an early car, right up to about £10,000 for a late low mileage car. But really there's no need to go out there and spend £10,000. Spend somewhere in between and get yourself a good example. Now as for medium-sized family cars, this is the shame, isn't it? Because it always used to be like a Ford Focus or a Vauxhall Astra was what you'd go buy. If you bought one of those now, you're in for a bit of trouble with problematic power shift gearboxes, bad engines, wet timing belts, you name it. So I'm going to give you 2 suggestions here when it comes to medium-sized family cars. The first one, if you've got a healthy budget, let's say up to about £10,000. If you're in that category, I'd consider a Mazda 3. You're going to get a 2012 onwards facelift for this kind of money, and that's going to come with the brilliant Skyactiv petrol engine. It's also referred to as the Skyactiv G. That's probably how you'll see it referred to in ads. That engine is paired up to a reliable torque converter as well. And as an added bonus, I think these cars look as good as they drive as well. Really good cars all round. A word of warning, however, if you do venture off into the world of Mazda, they're the only car company like this in that they make fantastic petrol engines, especially those Skyactiv engines, but their diesels are nowhere near as good, so I'd stay away from them and stick with the petrols. Now, I mentioned here, if you're looking for a family car, on more of a modest budget rather than £10,000, let's say £5,000, then you could look at something like a Honda Civic. You're going to get yourself a good Civic on this kind of budget. I'd try and go for the 1.8 petrol or the 1.6 diesel, depending on your needs, just depending on exactly what you're doing. If you're doing a lot of motorway miles, then the diesel might be an option. If you tend not to do lengthier journeys, then I'd go with the petrol. Now, there was also a 1.4 in these Civics as well, and there's nothing wrong with it from a reliability standpoint, but it's just a bit gutless when you're up at motorway speeds. It lacks a little bit of power, so try and stick with either the 1.8 petrol or the 1.6 diesel. Now, all of the Civics you're going to find on this budget, they are typical old school Hondas, and so use timing chains, reliable torque converters. It's as good as it gets. It's peak Honda, if you like. A word of warning on Honda nowadays, however, you may find some of the newer Civics creeping into your budget, and they might look like very good deals, but be careful. If it's equipped with that 1 litre engine, that engine is known to be very problematic. It uses a wet timing belt, just like Ford's EcoBoost engine and Peugeot's PureTech, so absolutely avoid a 1 litre Civic. Now, if we move into the larger saloon cars, somewhat unsurprisingly, Mazda's making another appearance with their Mazda 6. I say unsurprisingly because the brand has, over the years, stayed true to old-fashioned, solid engineering, and the 6 is absolutely no exception. When other brands have ventured into newfound technologies to reduce emissions, Mazda stayed true to relatively large capacity and pretty traditional gearbox setups, so they are very good. If you're considering a Mazda 6, again, just like the Mazda 3, focus on petrol cars made after 2012 for maximum reliability. Again, you'll find them with that same Skyactiv engine. You can also get these in estate form as well, if, like me, you tend to travel around with your big goofy dog. You really can't go wrong with one of these cars, to be honest. Now, moving into the world of SUVs, my first suggestion is probably going to come as no surprise whatsoever because I've spoken about them a fair bit on the channel. I've worked on them loads. I've had loads of them, personal cars as well. It's the Honda CR-V. So long as you don't need 7 seats or to tow anything that's going to be heavier than 1.5 tons, small caravans and that sort of thing are fine, then a CR-V is hard to beat, to be honest. Specifically here, I'm talking about the Mark IV. So that's from 2012 onwards. And you're going to pay anywhere from £5,000 up to now about £15,000 for the very best. Again, there's no need to be right up at the top end of that budget. CR-V prices, and CR-Vs in particular, are one car that have absolutely rocketed in price in the recent years, unfortunately. The reason being, they use the legendary 2 litre petrol, superbly reliable. I once took one of those engines over 260,000 miles with just routine servicing. On the diesel front, they're also very good. The older ones used a 2.2 litre, that was replaced with a 1.6, but again, they're both chain equipped, they're both really, really good engines. You're going to find them paired up to a torque converter gearbox, which again, you guessed it, is very, very reliable. Just great cars all round, and it's little surprise that prices have gone up like they have. Finally, if what you need is a full-fat, 7-seat, full-tow capacity car on a modest budget, this is a little bit of an unusual suggestion, but I do think they're very good. Have a look at the Hyundai Santa Fe's. Specifically, stick here to the 2.2 litre diesel. I think these are criminally underrated cars, and you can pick them up from about £3,500. £3,500, it's a lot of car for the money. And if you can get one from 2010 onwards, okay, maybe not on a £3,000 budget, but if you can afford one of those, it came with a little bit more power and a 6-speed gearbox opposed to the 5-speed that came before. One little caveat on these cars, they did come with self-leveling suspension on the rear as an option. Now, this could be very expensive to replace if it went wrong. Cars with 7 seats had it as standard, so look out for this. A good thing here is you can get conversion kits, so you can actually swap it back to just using standard suspension if you do happen to encounter problems, which is obviously a far cheaper way of rectifying it, but good cars. Now, my final suggestion here, it can also be picked up for as little as £3,000, just like the Santa Fe. But the difference is, I really don't recommend it with one of these, because at that money, you're going to get a horrid example that will be a total money pit. Let's say you've got north of £10,000 to spend and you fancy something a little bit more premium in the SUV category. Then I'd recommend taking a look at the Volkswagen Touareg. A lot of people think these are going to be absolute money pits, but buy the right one and they just aren't. If you're favouring reliability, then go for one without the air suspension. That can be a major source of headaches as these cars get older. But other than that, they use a 3-litre turbo diesel, which is very reliable, paired up to a very reliable 8-speed ZF gearbox. And if you look around, you'll find a good few of these that are north of 200,000 miles. So they do have a good amount of longevity to them. Now the final thing to add to this video, a little caveat on the end. Some of these on lower budget are going to be slightly older cars, so it is imperative that you have a look at the MOT history of them. Look for anything particularly sinister like rust and corrosion that pops up year on year, and also consider doing an HPI check. For the price of a couple of cups of coffee, you can use Vehicle Score with my discount code in the description below, and it'll tell you a whole host of things you're going to want to know about your new purchase. If it's ever been subject to an insurance write-off, if it's got any outstanding finance, and so on, it is well worth spending. Now, as ever, thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please do hit the like button. Let me know if there's any other cars, automatics, you'd add to this list in the comments below, and also hit the subscribe button if you tend to watch videos like this and buy used cars. I make plenty of them. I'll see you next time.